Welcome everyone to Typecal Talks from Home. This evening is our debut, and it's part of our series that we're committed to. And what I'd like to do is welcome you all, and we hope that the conversations and the lively engagement will ensue and will continue to create synergy and bridges throughout the community. At any time, for anyone who is an Arabic speaker, as you would present your questions, please feel free to do so. As I will be introducing Farid Abdal, a lot of times people would say that for those of us who know Farid Abdal, that he needs no introduction. But every time I go over his accomplishments as a mentor and as a teacher in the community, he continues to astound me. I'm really lucky because this evening I've got one of the first pieces that I was able to acquire from one of his first shows that showcased his move into ink on paper many years ago. Farid Abdal has been really instrumental in spearheading the community. And I think that we have, okay, so we just got someone muted. And so basically, coming from a background of architecture, and he is considered one of the preeminent architectures of Kuwait. He was counsel to the municipality of Kuwait at one of the youngest advisors of the time. And he was able to seamlessly move through so many different aspects of what we would say the creative industry, so to speak. He is also teaching and is a resident architect at Kuwait University, and many of the students are with us today. And he's a calligrapher, a product designer, a jewelry designer, a textile designer. And nothing really seems to stop him from being able to make all of these elements malleable with his visions and in his hand and in his consciousness. So we're very honored that Farid was able to join us today from his beautiful home and studio in Mangaf. And we would hope that you will be able to enjoy this process as Farid is going to share with us some of his insights and experiences before and during this time moving forward. So I welcome you, Farid, to the table.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about what were you doing, let's say, pre this new era? What were some of the things and the projects that you were working on at the time?
Okay. I was engaged in my normal life routines, really. I have a teaching routine. I teach 3 times a week. I daily practice the visit and the work in my studio. This is part of my natural routine, and I like gardening. So these were happening. I've been working from my house or my home almost good 36, 30, or maybe 40 years. Working in my home was a place there is a home, and a place that I feel in my library, my studio is my zone where my music, my dog, the incense I do, the books I live with, the music I choose is an environment that I created over a long time that puts me in a zone where I'm at my best.
Yes.
And the COVID-19 forced us in, but my routine hasn't changed, except my attitude towards it was a free choice to be at home. Then it turned out to be not free to go out. But yes. My home or my house was turned a long time ago into an integral part of my life. There is really not a place as a consumer house or a consumer loan house or a place where it's a place to rest, but it's really my office, my headquarter, my garden, my studio. It's a zone that I get in and I get out into the community. I overlap with it, and it's a zone where I also see nature at its best because we live in a desert. So I've been one of the people who advocated the master plan of Kuwait greening the desert, not in a sense that make it green like other countries, but in a desert style conservation of nature and plants, what have you. So my house became an experimental ground for different kind of desert plants, different species I like to see. I just recently, before COVID, moved into vegetable garden in my roof, but all around my house there is fruit and desert trees. And I live in that kind of environment, and I leave out of it and come back to it again all the time.
So Farid, would it be fair to say you and your wife designed your home in Mangaf?
That's correct.
With the input of your creative family members.
That's
so
correct.
you designed your home with this in mind.
Absolutely. It's a desert principle based. Sometimes we still could not change laws and regulations of the government. Like I would like to have it off the grid. It can be easily turned into an off-grid house. I would like to have it completely recycle its own water, but the regulations did not allow us. But there is all sorts of details in the house that allow the house to turn completely off the grid and become almost self-sustained.
So with this process that you actually started before the COVID reality, how do you see gardening connected to your creative voice, or do you see that it's separated, or do you see that it is a seamless connection?
No, in fact, it's seamless. The challenge and the same time the joy in living in the desert is desert has many meanings. Some people think it's a place where there's no life. It's basically a form of climate, and it has two important characters. One of it is a loss of topsoil or a lively biological soil. You find it only in oases and places that are served by human well, and low availability of water, but it's full of life. It's many people who started having a name of desert means really a death difficult zone. No, there's a lot of oases in the desert. There's a lot of sub-forms of life in the desert, observing the animals, the plants, how they adapt. So there is a beauty and a majesty to the desert that I appreciate to the most minute details. And I like to mimic that kind of a biology and see it flourish. And it's really giving in abundance. There's a lot of misconceptions, especially our own people in the desert now, in areas where it's fossil fuel. We did the paradigm shift in a negative way towards seeing the desert, and we think it's uncomfortable, over air conditioning and what have you.
So with this process, you mentioned to me in our previous conversations that you were actually gardening when all the experts in Kuwait are saying no, you shouldn't be gardening at this time, and maybe you had some of your plants perish, but you still kind of created this activity. And where do you see that? What did you learn? What were some of the insights that you gained from that process?
I'm a diligent researcher and a reader, and I have a lot of Kuwaiti and non-Kuwaiti or friends in different fields that live in Kuwait and pass by Kuwait who believe in the same things. So I have landscape architect friends, Fadl, I have other, Mr. Mohammed Ma'toug and others, and very good farmers of Kuwait who succeeded, but they're small bubbles that their knowledge has not come out as a public knowledge or a public belief or a collective belief. So they support me, we share ideas, we go back and forth, and a lot of friends like gardeners like Aruna Sultan, Fadl, I mentioned Fadl Abbar and others. They strengthen your belief, and you ask them questions and you research in books, internet, what have you, and you find more and more knowledge. I already developed a perspective of how to make a desert a better environment, regardless whether it's a productive farming or landscape or gardening. So that developed over the year.
And do you feel that the kind of approaches that we could be doing now more than ever, with the concept of rooftop gardens being part and parcel of an architectural solution, and this is probably something that you might impart to your students as well?
Absolutely, absolutely. There is all, whether it's in Kuwait or even now in the world, maybe the events of COVID-19 is going to do a total paradigm shift to the whole world, because what we're doing is really not sustainable. There is good within this whole challenge that we're through. For example, it's unconceivable. And back in the early 80s, late 70s, when I returned from the States, I wrote a paper to the Research Institute that our water systems are not sustainable for desert climate.
Okay.
For example, in Kuwait, we subsidize water desalination. But can you imagine when you flush 4 gallons of pure water to clean up the toilet every time you go to the bathroom? This is unconceivable, not sustainable whatsoever, whether in Kuwait, whether in Los Angeles, whether in anywhere in the world. At least mostly where water is not in abundance, and it's becoming more scarce as world population increase. So I've been making my house at the end my experimental field.
Okay.
I'm very accurate in using water. I could make it even less. I could even recycle it, but little bit moving with the government regulations to reach that. Even the garden that I have is not really highly consumable water. It's more of I intensify creating a biomass in the soil rather than give a lot of water and chemicals to the soil. My soil
So you're
is
almost creating a microclimate on your roof?
Absolutely, absolutely.
And so maybe this could be a prototype for future projects all around Kuwait.
Absolutely. I have a couple of professor friends of mine. Dr. Adnan is a expertise in solar energy and systems. He might be doing a joint paper in the near future about changes that we're going to do in the roof or the whole cooling, passive, active cooling systems in the house, things like that. But each one of us, I think, whether architects or engineers, artists, gardeners, sometimes you can influence in a large scale, but always your office, your home, your immediate environment becomes your canvas, your work of art. Your life becomes what you believe and what you do.
So rather than go big, you want to go deep.
I was in a place where it was big. I was a board member of the National Greenery Council of Kuwait for 4 years. We wrote and we gave good input on it. But again, as you leave the system role, bureaucracy, interest, what have you, take different shapes. I was very honored to be one of 7 team members that worked on criteria for environmental guidance in Kuwait. But a lot of it, the writing, the guidelines, and the participation in a lot of workshops goes on, and you train a group of people, and then over 2 decades, 3 decades, things take different shape. And that happens anywhere in the world, is that you keep reinforcing the best examples of it, and you take a small spot in your community where you make it livable and tangible.
So we were sharing some images of your space and your studio. We've got an image of your lovely cat, and it also seems that your home seems to attract a lot of creatures from the neighborhood. And the fact that you also have been working on, are there any other projects that you've been working on along with this gardening project at this time?
Yeah, but before going to the other projects,
sure.
One of the activities gardening, I save trees. Sometimes people kill trees and throw them out and they're half alive. And another my friend Umar Al-Qadi was one of the people who do that. I know a few people who save trees. I have a guy who takes care of palm trees, and he calls me sometimes like an agent. He says, somebody cut that tree or threw it out and it's still alive. Would you want us to ship it? If I have a place, I bring it, and I save trees. The place became haven for birds. I know how many birds come, and there's a lot of birds nest in our area. Lots of cats. Sometimes even يعني bugs, or people are scared of them. Bugs or different kind of insects. They live and they thrive, and it's quite a place to watch. But including that, saving trees sometimes, saving plants. I saved at least 2 big palm trees and one other form of desert tree in an ample size. I couldn't save one piece of tree that was about 80 years old that was snatched in Kuwait and Salmiya. But many things like that.
I just put up an image of a fig plant or a fig tree in your garden, Farid.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it's very rare to see figs. We had figs in our home in the 70s. And it's a beautiful plant, actually.
Yeah. I don't see it, but yeah.
I'm sorry because of the technology. So that's why I figured I'd describe to you.
Now, going back to your question, the other activities I do my basic routines of practice of. To me, calligraphy is like a swimming, like tennis. I practice that almost like a meditation. I do a lot of daily practice of that, a lot of sketching, along with reading and research. With product design or any idea that I had a good teacher who taught me a beautiful saying back in Wisconsin. He said, "If you think it, ink it," and it's a good mantra that I live by. If a thought comes, if it takes shape in writing or drawing, I would always do it, whether in the laptop or whether in a sketchbook. Sometimes I stop in the car in the street while I'm driving, and I make sure that if it's a worthwhile idea that I really. And you develop with an intensity and of practice that when a worthy idea visits, that shakes you, you don't just say, "I'm going to think of it." I don't do that. I know when a worthy idea or a worthy concept visits. And sometimes I take a side in the street and I stop and I sketch it or I record it. Things like that. Even at home, I have a marker. It's funny, but I have a marker and a pen next to my bed. Sometimes even I go in the bathroom and I sketch in the dark. Thoughts and ideas that I take pictures of in the morning, and I will continue next day on them. But you through since it's about creativity, through the practice and the literature about people into arts, literature, or what have you, full of this. It's developing habits. And when you know you are into this, then it becomes a way of life.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but Lubna, can you
it looks like
switch off the screen and come back in again?
Sure, let me try that right now. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for letting me know. I'm sorry about that. Let me see now.
So we don't go off.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So if you'll just excuse me. And can you see now?
It's just the same image that was showing before. Just partial screen too.
You asking me, Lubna, that or?
I was asking the viewers.
Yeah.
Can you see now?
Still the same image and only a partial screen.
But the slides aren't.
This is full screen.
Oh, does it?
Miriam, I'm wondering if it will come out from you as host. I'm going to stop it again. I will stop it again. And I'll try it one more time. I'm sorry. I will try it one more time. And here we go. Can you see it now?
Yeah.
Okay.
The cats.
Okay, so I will go back to the fig tree.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you see that, Farid?
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you. Great. So, as we were saying, you also said that you've been working on this is in the backside of your garden. It looks so you know, it doesn't look like we're in Kuwait.
Yeah. This is a model taken after oasis planting systems. And the oasis, they create layers of protection from the horizontal dry winds and from the vertical sun in the harsh times, whether it's very cold weather or very hot weather. The palms protect sub trees like citrus and other forms of figs and grapes. And then the other trees protect other plants, and they protect other species. So there is a vertical layering and a horizontal layering. So
beautiful.
The dry cold or the dry hot winds don't burn the plants, and the summer, and now we are just in solstice, 21st of June.
Mm-hmm.
The intensity of the summer starts getting stronger and the days are longer. And the palms on the top protect the palms, smaller palms on the lower level, and protect.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Trees and grapes and what have you, and the other group. There is sub layers, and then the lower part is you intensify the. I don't do gardening tilling or using the chemical fertilizers. I enrich the soil by its own leaves. It's like almost a woods approach, with a bit of natural fertilizers in the winter time. It gives it much more warmth.
So it's a form of permaculture.
Exactly.
So Farid, you being the linguist that at least I have known, and I remember many years back when you would share a lot of your books with notations on translations.
Yes.
And would you perhaps a publication of this type of concept in Arabic would be a consideration.
I have a team of my friends that I call them colleagues, ex-students a long time ago. We're working in a new vision of an almanac in the Arabian Peninsula. The word almanac comes from almanach in Arabic, and our calendars now are more sort of related to more of a generally religious and official calendars.
Yes.
We are seeing them in the near future to go back to natural calendars where it talks about the season of plants and the insects and the birds and the fish and what have you, along with the other occasions, whether it's the national holidays or religious holidays and what have you. Many times the calendars relate to the moon and the sun, but really they don't relate them to nature in our context here. I'm talking about Kuwait and the Gulf context. I want to bring that project back where sun and moon and the sea and the plants and the cycle of life relates to more of a natural forces.
Farid, I always I recall vividly your love for language and to speak candidly. I've learned my Arabic has improved immensely. My grasp of the language has improved immensely for the manner that you've presented the Arabic language in more forms than one, with your ink on paper explorations. Tell us about the project that you've been working on recently with your friends in Lebanon with Dungala Press, and some of the things that you've been exploring that tie in with your world philosophy that is interpreted in your work, along with your practices previously with certain martial arts philosophies. And I'm just going to switch the image to some of the publications that you shared with us earlier.
Okay. Between when I consider myself fortunate out of people who lived abroad for a long time, studied abroad. When I was living and studying in the States for some time, when you read in theory, when you read in English, and you back and forth between Arabic and English, I used to wonder all the time, people used to have dictionary and translate a word or so. But I used to stop and I reflect and I say, wow, what would this concept be? How would that concept be told in Arabic? Sometimes you read in arts or design, because sometimes a contemporary language or a language across the world, whether it's even poetry, this kind of curiosity came and said, how this, what I'm reading, this paragraph sound in Arabic? Equally, I used to say, not that I look for the meaning of a word, I would say, how would this whole page or this chapter sound in English from Arabic? This curiosity came to my mind. Or even when I got exposed to the love of Far Eastern culture, and I would give an anecdote. One time, a teacher of mine gave the history of the world of art back in the university in Wisconsin. And I was excited. I registered and I went there and I said, when I got the book, it's still with me. I look at the table of content. It wasn't really, my concept was history of the world art, but it was really Egypt, Greece, and Western history. So I raised my hand and I said, I thought it's a history of the world art. And he said, no, don't take it too literally. It's the Western perspective. So that rose my curiosity that I started filling in, because the libraries in our schools and the university there were really abundant. So I started acquiring Far Eastern arts, literature in English. It's a luxury to see them, all these books translated in English. And I developed a love for the Far Eastern culture, along with my knowledge or my curiosity about the Middle Eastern culture and its own history. So then you read concepts that are very fresh to my context, whether it's a Western philosophy, contemporary design theory, what have you. But this language, you understand in English, but when I started speaking it in Arabic in my mind, I find it extremely fresh and new. I don't know how to say it in Arabic. I think it in English.
Yes.
So that curiosity became, okay, you know what? I want to translate this paragraph in Arabic. Then it developed with time that I would be interested in not the paragraph, in the whole section.
Right.
And it became a hobby, like people who play crosswords. I was really like, I entered the world of translation by sheer chance, out of hobby, and it became a mental exercise or conceptual exercise. Then I realized an artist and a designer is actually a translator of his experience or her experience. You translate your process and your ambiguities, your imagination that is really not so clear, into a tangible, felt or heard or sensed form that comes to life. It's a birth process, and it's a translation process. So me, while trying to digest the Western concept and philosophies or histories of art and design theory, or looking into the Far Eastern, because I'm trying to achieve knowledge about how Far Eastern art is about, you'll go into their philosophy and your own spirituality. And then I said, this is really funny. After years of living into this, the Middle East is a place where the Greek birth of philosophy to the Western world, and Far Eastern spirituality, whether it's Far East Chinese on all the way to spiritual Sufism in India and Iran and the Middle East. These are schools that are really valuable to human civilization. And I saw, oh my God, this is maybe a personal experience and a geographical experience at the same time. And the love for translation developed. But for the Arab culture here, I found a good abundance of translation of Western civilization work. We translated Greek to the Europe, and then until now, there is a lot of good translation happening from the latest literature, the best quality of literature and philosophy into our language, but very rare translations of the Far East into our language.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I developed that interest with Dingola when I just finished the translation of, for example, the story of art, piece of art of war. The Art of War, I went to the military, and this is a classic book that they teach in all schools of military, I found out. Whether this is a classic, 2,000 so years by Sun Tzu. But not too many people know that there was another great warrior in the late 19th, 20th century. Yushiba wrote a book, The Art of Peace. And that's a very, very deep book of a person who's really a warrior and a great master of martial arts. He developed a peaceful school of, he redefined, because many people think the objective of war is to win, but the true sense of objective of war is to develop peace. And many people say it in politics, but they really don't do it. So Yushiba was truthful enough to dig very deep into human soul and write a book about what is it all about going into the martial culture.
Mm-hmm.
And I found it extremely valuable to share it. It's translated in English thanks to John Stevens, a very prominent scholar in the States into Oriental philosophy and martial artist. Thanks to him writing this book in English, but I didn't have an access to Japanese language, so I was very able to translate John Stevens' collection. And I would love to be happy to be shared it in Arabic language, where we're in the Middle East now becoming a ground of war. And our Assalamu alaikum is a daily hello in our language. Peace upon you is a daily practice, but it lost its depth. So I found not coincidence having this word art of peace or Assalamu alaikum or shalom in Hebrew. What have you. So this was, but to translate these, you have to dig more into other things of the culture. So the other set of books led me to the interest of going into the Zen Buddhist culture. There's a lot of culture: Confucianism, Taoism, Buddhism, Taoism, Confucianism. And especially Confucianism, they create the aggregate and the color of the Far Eastern value system and culture. So I went to the book. Funny that the other book, that is Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, I've been translating it longer. I don't know why, because the writings of the Art of Peace is much easier, softer, and more simplified. But the Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, it takes you into the paradoxes and the contradictions of mind process as a process of thinking and processing, and not no mind process, which is a Zen or maybe Sufi culture. There's a no mind or a Mushin. And then I have to read other books and translate the no mind. But the more I translate, this book took me quite a while, but I enjoyed every minute of it. It was like I wasn't in a hurry even to translate it. But when COVID came, I was finished with 3/4 of the book already.
Wow. Okay.
And even when I go on trips, I take it with me and I sit in contemplation and I do. I said, you know what? Now we are at home. I'm going to still do it, and the coincidence is called Beginner's Mind, as if the question is, are we beginning a new paradigm?
So
another birth. Are we going through another paradigm or another birth of a system of life?
We have about 10
yes. So we have about 10 minutes left, Farid. And on that note of the question that you posed, is there a question that you'd like to pose to your guests? That we could break out and then continue the Q&A on that? I'm like just going to share.
With an assumptions, what if this phenomena of intensive change intensifies, and we have to stay longer, or we have to, what are we going to do if we have to stay longer, or we face serious changes? Are we going to say, no, we cannot do it? There's a lot of predictions that have been happening in the last 30 years about change of climate. The COVID is maybe a byproduct of our culture, regardless of what you say, conspiracy, what have you. But really, this lifestyle may be not sustainable. Are we gonna be ready to live a different lifestyle? Are we gonna change our habits that make us more conscious? Are we're gonna give up certain things that became so fundamental in our life? But when you look at them, they're really not. They're not helping our life. They're not helping nature. They're not helping the environment. Are we ready for the change? Many changes. Maybe that's a question to pose.
So, so basically, you're posing the potential of what if the current status of life that we are in at this point in time were to be extended.
Maybe
18 months, 2 years, 3 years.
No, maybe
so,
it's not going to be there anymore. Maybe he lived like, he's not gonna be there anymore.
So what we will do then, I just need to ask Mariam, she will arrange for the breakout rooms. The question that Farid has posed to our guests, and we'll do the breakout, and then based on some of this conversation, I believe that there may have been questions that you have posted in the comments area. So Mariam, will I need to stop the share now for you to do the breakout?
Yes, and William is the host.
Yes,
so
wonderful.
We'll do this.
Brilliant. So I will do the stop share now, and we'll go
Yes.
from there. Great.
So I posted the questions Farid brought up in the chat, and I will share it with you again. The breakout room will just go into a very 3-minute breakout room session where you're going to talk about this, and it's very no judgment. What are your thoughts about this notion of change, and what will change, if anything? And are we ready for this change? And then we'll come back. I just don't have the hosting capability to do it.
I can do that.
Yeah, thank you. And the questions is in the chat box.
There'll be 4 separate breakout rooms, and you guys discuss them on yourselves, and then we'll come back after 3 minutes.
Yes. And sometimes it takes a bit, and you don't have to go if you don't want to go. If you don't want to go, you can just stay here. And otherwise, you're welcome to go into the breakout room for like 3 minutes, have a dialogue over this topic, and then we bring you back in.
Okay. Very good.
Wow, everyone is back. That was quick.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was like, boom.
It was only a minute because we barely spoke.
Yes,
I
just
see.
like
I see.
Brilliant.
Brilliant. And
Farid, if you want to ask the questions, or anyone who wants to engage in a conversation. Farid, you're on mute. We can unmute you, I think.
Okay.
Where is
I don't know how that happened, but okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what were some of the, I guess, changes you're ready for, changes you're not ready for? Maybe you can type it in the chat box. Any discoveries?
Is it to me, or that you're talking to the?
I'm posing it to everyone so
Yeah.
they can post it in the chat, or we still have about 5 minutes left.
Okay.
Or you can unmute yourself and share your thoughts and comments and ask questions.
Hello, could I speak, please? Is everybody's hearing me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, hello, Dr. Farid. I just want to ask, first of all, I've been following you since 2013 or something, and I heard you once that you said you don't follow news because it's a kind of depressing, actually, for everyone. So I have a question: is how are you following news these days? How do you know everything? What's going on?
You'll be
Thank you.
amazed. You'll be amazed. Very little. I like very limited window of news. I like to watch a channel Japanese in English called NHK, and friends or family bring the major news, whether verbally or what's up to them, what worries. I read economical reports once in a while, and I follow economical reports once in a while. And from that, from the economical reports, I could see many things other than my general readings in geography or economics. I have a sense, but the minute or the daily little things sometimes keep me, but sometimes I get it through social network. But the bold, important news, whether it's, I mean, to me, the news, what's happening in weather, what's happening in major economical trends, I'm on top of it. I'm on top of it. But the gossip and the doom and gloom and the wars, I know a bit of it, but I'm not really like addicted to a daily follow and chewing up of this kind of a news. I'm not in vacuum, but I'm not also in a regular sort of a intensified daily following news.
So just a following up the question, is this helpful for you in your creativity, or do you sometimes need to know something deeper maybe or something?
Not from the news. Not from the news, but I'm aware. Yeah, when, for example, I give you an example. When the issue of Black Lives Matter and the killing of the gentleman
Yes.
in Minnesota, I was alarmed. The news came very quickly through verbal, actually. And I was shocked that it happened in Minnesota because I studied in Wisconsin, Minnesota, that area, Midwest. It's a very beautiful and civilized area. And it was far from believing that it's happened in that area. I responded in a project. I'm working now and I'm producing work that relates to the issue of race, gender, what have you. It moved me. That's how far that, but I don't dig and go back and forth into, yes, it hurts, it goes deep. It took me to a journey of my books about Black American history, African American history, racism in the world, including in the Middle East, or what have you. It triggers some, but it doesn't take me to a direction where I start. No, if it gives a birth to an idea, but what's important is to maintain your peace of mind in the middle of the mess. This is part of the given, our human interaction. War and peace and quarrel and fight is a part of our physical. So yes, it shakes me, but it doesn't throw me out of my path of peace or path of to serve my people, local neighborhood, my students, my people that I serve, or even humanity at the end, whatever scale it is. You need to be able to take the shocks, whatever they are, and then maintain your center of peace so you can serve like any other person in the path of service. Really, I believe in that tremendously.
We have some really strong feedbacks from Lydia. The present COVID situation, which affected the whole world, should be a wake-up call for the humanity. Roa, if things intensify, will progress by progressing in terms of our lifestyle, like we'll slowly stray away from the consumer culture mindset. Susanna, we have a choice to make systematic change or return to old ways that were not sustainable. Ahmad, we should be ready to live in our own, especially that we don't know what could happen, because now we can't put expectations to what could happen even next week. We should increase our self-sufficiency in terms of providing our fundamental needs. Wow. Antonio, now is the time for everyone to make the change. Start small with yourself and it will make an impact. Roa, more appreciation to arts and artists. A lot of people now in lockdown have a bigger appreciation to the ones who create, whether it would be TV shows, video games, books, or animation. Muhammad, the way I see people behaving out in the streets, I doubt there is any awareness of the change of habits or changes of habits. Very interesting. Claudia, we can redesign and rethink the way we live our lives from now on. Can countries implement stay-at-home periods to help with the environment? Ahmed, oh, I just lost Ahmed. And that leads us to change our daily lives to a better sustainable lifestyle and act peacefully with surroundings and others. Zahra, we already, as humans, experience several pandemics. Things will get back to normal, and we humans will start to forget humanity as well as damages nurture again. Donna, I see a lot of good coming out of the current situation, but I think all the good is only sustainable if we collectively come together as a human race to idealistic to understand and acknowledge the root cause of what's going on and the impact of our actions. Slowing down, empathy are key, less fear, less ego, more real love to humanity, recognize and prioritize. Wow. Very powerful. On this note, it's 6 p.m. So if you would like to take more questions, you're more than welcome. We can stick around for another 10, 15 minutes.
There was a gentleman who disappeared, came out and disappeared. I hope he wrote something or waited. He had an interesting question.
The audio, Farid. There's something with your audio, dear.
It's not mute. It's all working.
So Claudia says we need more from Farid.
What? Ask questions. I'll be more than happy.
So Claudia, so if anyone has questions to pose, if you could type them in, and one of the hosts will. So Mohammed Al-Aslawi, my question to Mr. Farid is are you part of the Dongola Artist in Quarantine series?
I don't know if that's official, if there is something Dongola Artist as an official thing, but Sarah Chalapi is a very good friend, and she's taking the book into publishing. But I cannot answer that I'm part of the Dongola Artist activity.
Would anybody like to pose a question directly to Farid, since we have some time? Claudia? I have another question. And what is your take on the demolition of historical buildings nowadays in Kuwait, such as the ice skating ring? From Mohammed Al-Aslawi.
Okay. I was actively involved in a group of protecting historical building with me goes back to the 80s. I was part of a group that worked with our friends Evelyn Al-Ali. I think she's a lead architect who started this movement in Kuwait, with many other architects and artists and people of poetry and literature. We go back to the 80s and even maybe a bit before. I was involved directly in the visit to stop Diwan Amiri to stop the demolition of the ice skating ring, but with no success. We met the people in charge and we argued. Unfortunately, some architects and engineers work with them and their colleagues in the society, and I know them. We could not convince them with all of our proposals, whether it's technical, financial, and otherwise. It's a very unfortunate event, and unfortunate to have officials have an attitude to our historical heritage, whether it's the pre-oil, during the transition from oil to post-oil era. And a lot of people don't understand that contemporary buildings or modernist era or even post-modernist era considered historical buildings. Many of them think it has to be mud and thatch buildings that are historical. And we believe 70s and 60s or even any building that is, the criteria is there. We're part members of the United Nations criteria for historical buildings.
Right. So
But again,
Farid,
real estate or interest groups sometimes don't buy that.
True. So Farid, someone is asking, please talk about how you attract animals to your lovely house, Hanan al-Shaya. We have a few more questions.
I think the animals know whether if you're walking in the street, the animal sense, if you're a person who respect and respect nature, respect and love animals, they know them like a X-ray. That's first. I experienced that, and all of you friends of mine who are into this, they know that. But also they have a sense if that building or that area is approachable, and they will find sanctuary. And the sanctuary is in a physical form and the people that live in the place. My house and my parents' house always attracted animals who've been thrown away, neglected, what have you. And my challenge now is if you train them to live around your house, they started thinking that everybody is like you. I had 3 cats hidden by cars because they started thinking that everybody in the street is as friendly as we are. But they know animals in all forms, birds, even birds of prey, dogs, cats, even rats know the house is friendly or not. And they will approach the place naturally. They approach apartment buildings, they approach schools sometimes. I've seen schools that are friendly to animals, schools that are not friendly to animals. I've seen public buildings, even public buildings, official public buildings. You would not think somebody there, but some person, an engineer or a bureaucrat or a janitor or even a head of department is kind to animals, and he tells them, leave them some water. And you find them gathering under a tree while people running around doing their paperwork. You say, oh, there's a person there who respects and takes care of animals.
So there are 2 more questions we can hopefully I'll mention you. This one is from Claire. Have you heard of the Farmer's Almanac? Yes, in the U.S. It is a type of calendar that takes into account planting and weather prediction.
Of course, this was a beautiful introduction by my teachers in the States, my friends who I used to go fishing with, the farmers that I liked in Wisconsin and Illinois that we used to visit, and we were invited into the turkey Thanksgiving. The almanac was in their table in the kitchen, and we talked about it, and we talked through it, and what have you. Indeed, I do. Thank you.
And Ahmad, Ahmad Hindi, how to balance between fulfilling our artistic passion and our mission in helping the humanity more like an empathy? That's a good question.
Okay. If you align up with your inner core, which is really easy and hard at the same time, this is one of those paradoxes. There are Sufi Zen paradoxes. We are too busy trying to be somebody else. Humans in a state of a certain level of, when you want to be socially acceptable, politically acceptable, socially correct, politically correct, this throws you off of knowing yourself well. But when you have moments where you reflect and you know yourself more, and you know it with kindness and with the ease, and all the programming of social, whether language, school, then you know your natural tendencies. I cannot escape from. I mean, loving animals is in me since I was a small child, and now I cannot. It's a natural thing, and the more I practice it, the more it shows better things of it. The love of art is something not that I want it to be. It's something in it. But art doesn't have to be painting and music or theater. Art it comes out in many forms, many limitless forms. It's an attitude. It's a state of being. It's a state of living. So when you tune to your inner self in a more kind and tender and truthful, that you will know what are we here to do, each individually. And then you find that purpose of doing it is enough. You will serve the world and your community and yourself through it. It doesn't have to be complicated, really. This is how I see it. Did I answer your question?
So yes, and Claire Gidding said, could there be a Kuwaiti farmer's almanac to teach more people about the natural ways of living?
This is a dream, and it's going to be a reality that I'm working with two young architects, friend of mine, Ahmed Al-Safar and Hala Al-Isa. We're teaming up and working on it. Is Ahmed there? I can see Ahmed.
Yes, I just waved
Yeah,
to
I'm here.
him.
Ahmed is a partner of farming also, or
Yes.
gardening. But we're working on it, and information flows amazing. People start throwing. His father is a diligent fisherman, and I started asking him about seasons of fishing and reading the water and reading the fish. Lubna, your father is a diligent fly fisher and what have you. To be a fisher or a gardener or a person tuned in nature is a great gift, is a great blessing.
True. Farid, you're the gift, and you have inspired and enlightened us, as you always have. I can say this as a friend who's known you for more than 10 years. I won't say how long. And you continue to amaze us and myself. And I hope that on behalf of the group that everyone has gained and gleaned more insights and meaning. And thank you for allowing us to see your beautiful home, your garden, your journey, taking us with you. And hopefully we'll be part of that journey as you elevate and you make Kuwait such a beautiful place. Thank you.
Thank you for your friendship. Thank you for inviting me to share with you what I have.
So, Mariam, if you'd like, and from the team.
I want to say, you know, I was nervous. I had a little bit of computer glitch. It all went beautiful. And you guys asked powerful questions. And thank you, Farid. Thank you, team. And thank you to our first Typecal from home. And our next talk is going to be in a couple of weeks, 29 June. It's June.
Yes.
And Paul Antonia has confirmed with us, so you will be receiving our electronic memos, and we'll bombard you. And so that will happen in a couple of weeks. So thank you again, and thank you for supporting us. Thank you, Farid, and thank you, team members and participants.